After a wild start to the offseason, things have started to calm down a little bit for the Philadelphia Eagles, but if you know anything about the Eagles and Howie Roseman, it's no secret that they're a team that has consistently been able to make big-time moves a little bit later in the offseason. They did it multiple times last offseason, and now this offseason, they have an opportunity to do it once again, as a star player at a potential position of need for the Eagles has just become available, and it seems the Eagles could be one of the top landing spots. But would this be a good move, and just how realistic is this to happen? Well, we're going to talk all about that in this video today, but before we do that, make sure you go down and subscribe to this channel for more consistent Philadelphia Eagles content coming throughout this entire offseason. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications, and drop a like on this video if you do enjoy. And now with all that being said, let's get into the video. I think one of the main concerns for the Eagles as they move closer to the 2023 NFL season is that, especially on the defensive side of the ball, the Eagles did lose a lot of talent this offseason, as in free agency, multiple of the Eagles' star defensive players that contributed heavily to their Super Bowl 57 run left for other teams, as the Eagles just simply could not afford to pay them, and a lot of people think that the Eagles defense could take a step back next season. And among these players that left this offseason are TJ Edwards, who signed a 3-year $19.5 million deal with the Chicago Bears, and Kaiser White, who signed a 2-year $10 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals. And these were obviously both the Eagles starting linebackers last season, and they played huge roles in the Eagles Super Bowl run. Obviously, with both these guys leaving, that leaves a huge hole at the linebacker position, and obviously the Eagles at that point had to go out and do something to address it. Obviously, at linebacker, the Eagles already had Nakobe Dean, who didn't really play at all in his rookie season, but now in 2023 will definitely have a much bigger role and will look to have a breakout year after being called the steal of the 2022 NFL Draft. And I definitely think he can have a lot of success in his increased role next season. And the Eagles also went out and they made a move to sign a cheap linebacker from the Bears in Nicholas Morrow, as he signed a 1-year deal with the team. And this was kind of a low-risk, high-reward move because the Eagles signed him for very, very cheap, and he's going to come in here just after having the best year of his career with the Chicago Bears, having a career high in tackles and leading the Chicago Bears in tackles. And he's going to look to prove himself on this Philadelphia Eagles defense as a consistently good linebacker in this league. And something else that's pretty underrated about Nicholas Morrow is his pass coverage ability, as last season with TJ Edwards and Kaiser White, both those guys weren't exactly known for their pass coverage ability. And Nicholas Morrow, that's probably his biggest strength. So that's something that I think is really promising for the Eagles moving forward. And I think Nicholas Morrow, if he gets this opportunity, can be very successful in his role. So I do think the way the Eagles linebacker core is structured now, I definitely think they can get by with that, and I think they can have success with those two guys they have that are currently set to be starting next season. But at the same time, that doesn't mean I think that the Eagles linebacking core is so good that they don't need to do anything to go out and address it. And it definitely still is one of the weaker position groups on the Philadelphia Eagles roster at this point. And I still do think that the linebacker position is a position that can still be upgraded if the Eagles choose to do so. Now, meanwhile, down in Florida, we shift our focus to another team in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whose 3-year run of success is most likely over, as the GOAT Tom Brady, who was probably the main reason for the Buccaneers' success over the past few seasons, has officially announced his retirement this offseason, saying he's done playing football for good. And the Buccaneers are also a team that's currently in a terrible cap situation, and it looks like this is a team that's 100% headed for a rebuild in the near future, and with that, we may start to see some major changes to the roster at some point. And yesterday, we just got some big news regarding that, as Tampa Bay Buccaneers star linebacker Devin White has now officially requested a trade. And this is some of the biggest NFL trade news that has come out recently, and it's going to be really fascinating to watch how this situation unfolds. An article written by Joseph Zucker announcing this news says, quote, Tampa Bay Buccaneers linebacker Devin White has requested a trade from the team, according to ESPN's Jenna Lane. A source told Lane that White is fed up with the team, though the source did not disclose what is causing White to be frustrated. The 2019 first-round pick is due to be a free agent next offseason after the Bucs triggered his 5th-year option, which carries an $11.7 million salary for 2023. So from this report and everything that Zucker said here and what he wrote, it sounds like a trade could be beneficial for both sides. The Buccaneers, if they trade him, could save some cap space, and they wouldn't have to pay him this huge extension after this season and risk losing him for nothing. And obviously Devin White, it says he's frustrated for some reason with the Buccaneers, and it's probably because the Bucs aren't willing to pay exactly what he's looking for in regards to that contract extension, and the team also doesn't look like it's going to be super successful moving into the future. So at this point, you must ask this question: what are the potential top landing spots for Devin White should he be traded? Well, it's looking at this point like the Eagles are a team that makes a lot of sense because, as I mentioned before, they're a team that could still use an upgrade at the linebacker position, and adding Devin White would help them do just that, as he's been a star at linebacker ever since he entered the league in 2019 when he was drafted by the Buccaneers in the first round, and he's had some great production in his career so far. Throughout his entire career with the Bucs, he's had 483 total tackles, 20.5 sacks, and 6 forced fumbles, and he's done this in 62 games played. And just last year in 2022, he did have a slightly down year, but he still put up some fantastic numbers as he had 124 total tackles, 73 solo tackles, 5.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. And adding Devin White to the Eagles would give them another star level player on that side of the ball, as they lost a couple of those guys this offseason, and it could definitely help to replace those guys' production. And it also seems like Devin White would be open to a move to the Philadelphia Eagles because just a couple weeks ago, White caused a stir on social media and he started a bunch of trade rumors involving him and the Philadelphia Eagles, as Greedy Williams, one of the Eagles' new offseason acquisitions, went on Instagram and he posted a picture of him signing his new contract with the Eagles, and he captioned it Philly with the Eagles emoji, and Devin White commented on this post saying, "Let's make it happen." And this is when all the speculation with Devin White potentially going to the Eagles started. And obviously, at the time I covered this and I said, this doesn't exactly really mean anything because White and Greedy Williams were former teammates together on LSU, and he could just be supporting his friend saying, "Hey, let's make it happen, go out there and do your thing." But he also could have meant like, "Hey, let's make this happen. Let's make a move to get me in Philadelphia." I mean, that's how a lot of people took it. And again, that's not 100% meaning that that's exactly what he meant by that, but that did cause a lot of speculation and started some rumors there. And then with this news yesterday that White has requested a trade from the Buccaneers, an old tweet that he made on March 27th is starting to get a lot more attention, as someone had tweeted a picture of him in an Eagles jersey saying, "Let's make it happen" as the caption, following White's reply to Greedy Williams. And White responded to this by saying, "Green's my favorite color, but 40 and 45 are my numbers. Appreciate the love." Well, in the picture, his number was 54, so I guess he's talking about, my number would be 40 or 45. But still, nonetheless, he gave this some attention. He decided to retweet it, and it's not like he's like CJ Gardner-Johnson and he's going out here and deleting stuff. It's still up there on his Twitter at this moment. And again, this tweet doesn't 100% mean that Devin White definitely wants to come join the Eagles, but at the very least, it means he's not opposed to it, and maybe he has a little bit of interest in a potential move in that direction. And this is also a move that has Howie Roseman written all over it, as Devin White is currently going into the last year of his contract on his 5th-year option, and the Eagles and Howie Roseman have consistently made moves for players that are on their last year of their current contracts. Just last offseason, the most recent example of this is them going out and making a trade for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Now with Devin White being potentially out there in the trade market and him being on the last year of his contract at a position that the Eagles could definitely still upgrade, that's definitely something that has to be considered and gives you another reason to believe that the Eagles could be a potential landing spot for White should he be traded. But you have to question how likely this actually is, and you first have to understand how much it would cost to actually trade for Devin White. I've seen some people say that he would cost you around a 3rd-round pick. I've seen some people say he would cost you a 1st-round pick. And something else you do have to consider when talking about what Devin White's potential trade compensation would look like is that if he does stay on the Bucs this year, they're probably going to lose him in the offseason after this season, because I don't think they want to pay him that huge extension that he's going to be owed. So it would be in the Bucs' best interest to go out and try to get some value for him, no matter what that is, before he leaves in the offseason after this next season for nothing. But currently, the Buccaneers are saying that they don't intend to trade Devin White at all. And this doesn't really make that much sense to me. I think they should go out and try to get what they can for him before he leaves them for absolutely nothing. But they could just be putting this out there to try to raise his trade value so they can get as much as possible for him. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't know exactly what the eventual cost would be in a Devin White trade, but at the end of the day, if the Eagles do want to go out there and make a trade for Devin White, they have to make sure they're not giving up too much. There's absolutely no way that they can give up a 1st-round pick in this trade. Now, if he's going to cost you a 3rd-round pick, that's actually something that I would consider that something worth talking about, but the reason you can't give up too much is because you have to take into account the huge extension he's going to get paid next offseason, and obviously the more you give up in a trade for him, the more you absolutely have to extend him the next offseason, and it's going to be a hefty price tag, and I really think that this extension is what's going to make this trade really hard to get done, not just for the Eagles, but for any team that wants to go out there and maybe make a move for Devin White. I mean, just look at Roquan Smith last year. He requested a trade from the Chicago Bears in August, but the Bears couldn't find a trade partner to take on Smith until around the trade deadline in the Baltimore Ravens, and this is because the Bears just couldn't find a team that wanted to give up valuable assets and pay Roquan Smith a huge extension. And, you know, eventually when the Ravens did end up trading for him, they had to give up a second-round pick, and they paid him a huge 5-year, $100 million contract extension. And Devin White is set to get around a similar extension, maybe even worth a little bit more than what Roquan Smith got from the Ravens. And there are people out there that question whether he's worth an extension of that caliber. I mean, Devin White is definitely a good player. He's a good tackler. He's an aggressive, hard-hitting type of linebacker, but there also are some knocks to his game. He gambles a little bit too much and makes some poor decisions, and he's also not a very good pass coverage linebacker, and there are some people that call him a little bit overrated. So I'm not really sure if Devin White is worth a top-tier linebacker extension like it looks like he's going to get paid. Even though I think he's a very good player, I do think he might get paid a little bit more than what he's worth, and I don't think the Eagles would be very comfortable with paying him that amount of money, especially since they're a team that doesn't really value off-ball linebackers. So at the end of the day, I don't see the Eagles trading for Devin White being a super realistic possibility. You know, I like Devin White, and even if some people say he's a little bit overrated, I still think he's one of the best linebackers in the league, and I think he would be a really good fit on this Eagles team. But because of the trade compensation they would probably have to give up, and the huge extension they would have to pay him next offseason, and also the way that the Eagles value off-ball linebackers, I just don't see this move happening. The only way I could see it happening is if he didn't cost that much, maybe around a third-round pick, and they brought him in for a one-year rental type of situation, and he could try to help the Eagles win a Super Bowl this year, and then they just don't extend him after the season. But I really just don't see it. I think it would be really hard for this move to happen, and I just don't see it being a super realistic possibility. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Do you think the Eagles could go out there and potentially trade for Devin White? Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree with me. Just let me know down in the comments, and drop a like on this video if you did enjoy, and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any Eagles videos coming in the future. If you want to watch another Eagles video, you can go watch this one right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank y'all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.